All right. Hello, everyone. We are from the closing government. We'll now give you a recap of our debate so far. So far, from the Prime Minister, we see that their main point is that the punishment is not heavy enough for our motion, in which our motion today is about that this House will impoverish corruptors. And the other point by the Prime Minister is that the punishment will be done by taking more than 100% of what the corruptor had taken from us. The corruptors will be impoverished to the point that they will only be your everyday regular guy. And the reason for this kind of punishment is because, according to us, the government, an easy escape will only motivate the other aspiring politicians to corrupt as well, because the punishment that they are having will only prove to be a slap on their wrist. Meanwhile, the leader of the opposition states that oftenly the corruption happens in underdeveloped country where they need to corrupt or they won't be able to survive, in which this has been rebutted by the Deputy of Prime Minister by saying that by letting the corruptors have some money or resource in their disposal, you won't deter them from corrupting and only end up not doing anything significant, whereas impoverishing will at least give them the reason to not corrupt anymore, ladies and gentlemen. And the Deputy of Prime Minister also adds that paying back normally will not work. It has to be paying back to the country threefold. That way, it can ensure that the country will have the money that they deserve, all while punishing the corruptor all the same. And the opposition here seems to be so adamant in rehabilitation, ladies and gentlemen. But my government whip here will explain about why such argument will not work. Okay, now onto my point. As the member of the government, I will support the government, obviously. Why? Because the government so far has been giving solid status quo and clear mechanisms to which how they will punish these corruptors by impoverization. Why? Because, like what the opening government had stated again and again, we had way too many corruptors that are able to get away scot-free and without any serious repercussion. Now, my point for this debate as the closing government will be as follows. How will the government ensure that the family of these corruptors will not suffer a cruel fate like the perpetrator? Because while the opposition has an interesting point to make, and that is by sparing their innocent family, we believe that the government can set up a program to make sure that the family of these corruptors should be fed at the very least 5 to 10% of the estimated count of how much that the corruptor had corrupt. We should also trace the origin of these assets in order to identify and apply the law of money laundering. And the purpose of this tracing of the assets is to ensure that we know what kind of asset that exists in the corruptor's possession, and we also able to trace their whereabouts and also their source, whether they might have come from a criminal act. If said properties have been proven to have come from any illegal means, the state has the right to take up these properties and only spare up to 10% of the property's original value to be given to the family as their means of survival. With this kind of solution, we can ensure that we punish the corruptor as hard as we can while ensuring the survival of their family, ladies and gentlemen. On the other hand, if we only follow the opposition solution, it will not deter the corruptors enough. Why, ladies and gentlemen? The reason for this argument will be given to you by the government whip. So, all in all, to recap, we do need to impoverish the corruptors, ladies and gentlemen, in order to deter them and other aspiring politicians from becoming a corruptor themselves. And I believe with the mechanism presented by the government, it will also ensure that their family to be able to live on minimum wage enough to satisfy their needs, but not the wants. With that, I believe that the government side is stronger than the opposition, and that is why this motion should be held. And the rest of the argument will be brought to you by the government whip.
So, from the government side, if the corruptors go into rehabilitation, they cannot make the deterrent. They can bribe someone to make the corruptors is not feel like in jails, but they can make the jails like hotels, like the corruption's case before. So, impoverished corruptors by judge not only considered to uphold the juridical norms, but also to implement the code of professional conduct as a judge. Impoverishment corruptors will have positive impact on the image of Indonesia as a state of law and prevention of corruptions. For corruptions, this can cause a deterrent effect, which then can prevent anyone who wants to involve corruption. However, the verdict by the judge's consistency in implementing the code of conduct of his professional. So our position in Gov is strong and solid, because if we follow the opposition solution is not effective, that's not guarantee that corruptors not ashamed at all. So the only one who can punish them is just the state. When the corruptors are in the same place, there is possibility that they might work together to plan even more worse to corruption. Thank you.
And that is all from us, the closing government. Thank you very much for your attention.